It's another Wednesday night here at the Voice of College Football Miami, and that means it's another opportunity for you to hear from the best. We got Cam Underwood here from State of the U. Leave those comments and questions in the live chat as always, and we will do it up right for the next hour talking Canes in the middle of their spring practice sessions. Cam, how we doing tonight?
Doing well. Hanging out. Can't complain. How about you?
Doing well. I'm still waiting for spring weather, though, unlike you.
Oh yeah, it's pretty nice down here. I can't complain.
Yeah. I can complain about gloomy and 40. That's what I'm going to complain about.
Yeah, that's not great.
You know from living in Michigan that you get a spurt like in March, and then you get 2 or 3 days of 65, 75, and then it's gone, and then it comes back. And until it's really practically May, you can expect that back and forth until, finally, we've seen our last cold day. Well, we're not quite there yet. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. And once again, leave your comments and questions in the live chat. But we've got 3 items, Cam, right out of the gate that none of them are concrete, signed and sealed, all speculative in regards to player movement. We'll start with the West Virginia defensive lineman, Akeem Messidor. Pretty good playmaker for them. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I've recited them enough this week that it's something like 8 or 9 tackles for loss and maybe 5.5 sacks, something in that range. And he's getting attraction from quite a few big boys. I know he went to Penn State last weekend, USC and others, and Miami's on the radar as well.
Yeah, he's supposed to be coming down for a visit this weekend. I believe the reports have come out about that. And excuse me, sorry, I always forget that. And it's always the same person at the same time. But I should, hey. Whatever, my bad. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, Miami's obviously looking to retool the defensive line, and starting by doing that at the like terminal ends, right? So you're going to bring in some grad transfers. Already got Jacob Lichtenstein, a 6th-year senior, South Florida native. He went to Cypress Bay High School. He comes down. You got a kid from UAB, the Moultrie kid. He comes in. You get Mitchell Agood from UCLA. 6'5", 250 edge rusher. So you're looking to maybe add one more guy, 1 or 2 maybe. Doing that, and then also having some really great talent in the recruiting class that we just signed. So it's like you're bookending how you're changing the defensive line. But you need some guys to play right now while you're able to bring those guys along. People were talking about Cyrus Moss, this year. And I'm like, he needs a mango season. Like he's built like Gregory Rousseau when Gregory Rousseau got here, not what he ended up being, right? So it takes time for that physical development. So when you bring in a guy like Messidor, potentially to help bridge that gap and be a now, immediate eligible player, that could be big. And, he's one of, if not the best defensive players on West Virginia's roster. So adding a player of that caliber and talent could be beneficial for Miami. So again, we've already added some guys through the transfer portal, especially at that position. It looks like we're chasing after him and another guy who, you might ask me about next. But yeah, Miami is definitely looking for right now up front. We need guys to come in and play because while the young guys are talented, they're not game ready, and some of the other guys on the roster might be best served seeking opportunities elsewhere.
And on the surface, Miami may have a huge advantage in procuring Messidor's services because he is a Florida native, Clearwater, Florida.
And he played at West Virginia when new defensive backs coach Jamil Adai was still there. So there's pictures of the two of them together from some years ago. So you have a familiar face on the defensive staff, even though it's not necessarily your position. Still, so that could be, in Miami's favor, but until it's announced and, everything, there's still wiggle room, but definitely a player that we're going after.
Now, less heralded, but still, we don't know much about him. Defensive ends in the transfer portal from Jacksonville State, and DJ Coleman.
Yeah, this is a kid who just announced today that he was going in the transfer portal. He's a big kid too. He's 6'6", 245, 250. He wreaked havoc against Florida State when Jacksonville State beat Florida State last year. And he's a guy who has size on the edge and, predictable skill as well. You can't just be, tall and that's all, that's, maybe at the back end of a basketball roster, there's somebody who's just 7'3", and we just kind of run him out there to, get 5 fouls or whatever it is. But there's a guy who can play. And exactly. Fresh 3.542 Coleman from Jacksonville State. Exactly. To the prior comment from Mr. HD, I believe it is. Yeah, Miami is hitting the transfer portal hard because the staff knows how they want the roster to be built. And the way to get it built that way right now is through the portal. And then over time, you can do that just through normal recruiting and then just a sprinkle of, just a sprinkle of transfer portal guys, one here and one there. But, in the immediate time frame, to reshape the roster, that's what it's going to have to be. And I'm fine with that, definitely looking at Coleman, looking at Mesidor. And again, we've already brought in multiple guys on the defensive side. And also, Frank Ladson on the offensive side of the ball. And Henry Parrish. And Isaac Sopolagu from out that way. And Jonathan Dennis, South Dade's own, who played in high school with Frank Ladson and Tyreek Stevenson before Stevenson went to South Ridge. Offensive lineman who signed with Oregon is in the transfer portal. Like I said, he's from Homestead South Dade Senior High School. He played in high school with 2 guys on the roster. Keyshawn Washington was at that same school. So he played with at least 3 guys on the roster currently in high school. He went in the portal, and the coach that he signed with and the offensive line coach that he, worked under now are here back at the crib. 2 + 2 = 4. It would be a shock of all shocks if Jonathan Dennis went anywhere other than Miami as a transfer portal player. But yeah, that's 5 players that I've mentioned just today that we're chasing. 3 at the current time, in addition to the other 5 or so that we've already got through the transfer portal. So yeah, definitely looking to change the roster in the trenches that way and moving from there.
And just to give folks an idea on the prospects concerning Jonathan Dennis, the 2020 class committed to Oregon the previous summer, 14th rated guard in the country coming out of high school. So nothing to sneeze at there. Roughly top 50 player in the state of Florida, roughly top 300 player, 317 in the composite from South Dade High School, as you mentioned, from Homestead, Florida. Really good stuff. And then thirdly, and we go to the high school ranks, and we've been talking about one Josh Connerly for quite some time, and he's the last big-time college football player, high school football player that has yet to decide. 6 schools are on his list. He is announcing Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 6 on the West Coast out of the state of Washington. And Miami's in the mix again with 5 other schools. And he's making his announcement. And of course, that would be enormous because he's the top-rated offensive tackle in all of America.
Yeah, again, the Anthony Munoz Offensive Tackle of the Year, All-American, all that stuff. But he's not coming out here. It would be the shock of all shocks. It would be the upset of upsets to get Josh Connerly in this class. There was not a second visit. There wasn't really anything else. And I really firmly believe that it does have to be the 2 visits, one unofficial, one official. And not only that, he's had so much time since he visited Miami, and then he's visited other places in his recruitment and, been focused on basketball because he plays for a legendary or, one of the best high school basketball programs around. That's why, again, he's making this decision now at the end of the signing window, because technically players could still be signing all the way from signing day until I think it's next week, Monday or Tuesday is when the window. But obviously, you kind of sprint for the beginning of it, of the signing period. But Yeah, no, Josh Connolly, that ship has been sailed. So if you are still holding out hope for that, I mean, I'm not going to say that you can't, but he's not there.
Trying to figure out by looking at this list where he would be leaning: Miami, Michigan, Oklahoma, Oregon, USC, Washington.
I think it's going to be Michigan or one of the West Coast teams.
Okay.
Because, he's from Seattle, Rainier Beach, high school. So Washington's there. Oregon had been recruiting clearly. So they're a power team on that coast. And then, if you have Oklahoma there, well, then that's really Lincoln Riley. And where is he now? USC, which is, a gravitational center of college football. So, and then Michigan, is a national recruiting brand there's very few teams that recruit nationally the way that Michigan does and can. So that's why I would put them in that group. But I don't think it's going to be Oklahoma specifically because Lincoln Riley's gone from there. And I don't think it's going to be Miami just because I don't see him coming however many miles down here. I would love it. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Folks, we appreciate your support. We've got 85 on the line. We typically finish off in that 250 to 300 range. So we appreciate the support and the numbers of all of you that show up each and every Wednesday night. Keep a few things in mind, though. Please hit the like button. That's a simple task. Takes a split second. Hit the like button. The YouTube algorithms love it. And we will gain eventually more views from you hitting the like button because they love the ratio of likes being rather high. Also, share the videos out on social media or just flat out just talk to people, whether that be on social media or face-to-face, phone-to-phone, DM to DM, to let them know that we're here every Wednesday at 7 Eastern, talking Miami football with Cam. Also, the Super Chat's available to all of you to show your support as well. So there was a question regarding recruiting. Let me get to it. Basically, Cal here is eyeing a number. Insert the number that you're targeting for the 23 class.
I mean, I'm on record thinking that this is probably going to be a top 5 class. A failure? I would say 13 or lower, I think. And I think, but more than the overall number, I think that it's the individual players, if they come or if they don't, or who is in the class and who, if you don't get a Brandon Ennis, 5-star wide receiver, American Heritage, right? But you get Jaylen Brown as a 5-star wide receiver in that same scholarship slot. All right, that'll work. Even though the name might be a little bit different, I think that'll work. So, yeah, I think it's more that than anything. But I would say, yeah, I mean, if we're 13 or lower, I would say 13 is the floor, absolute floor. If we're below 13, then I would not necessarily be very pleased, especially with the coach that we have, the staff that we've built, and the way that things, even though not everybody is committed yet or everything, but the way that I reasonably think that this could go, another 15 or lower, that would be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't really see that happening, but Mac asking, now Mac is going way into the future here. So between now and the time this decision is going to be made that he's referring to between Jacurri and Jake Garcia, we're looking at the rest of spring practice, a whole other August camp, then another spring practice, then another August camp to arrive at this decision. But still, he's serving up. Are you okay with everybody pretty much giving Jake the starter job over Jacurri when Tyler Van Dyke leaves?
I mean, I'm fine with it right now because it's just like what we're doing. It's just people talking, so that can be the common thought. But at the end, there's going to be a battle, right? So yeah, we as fans and, and bloggers and outsiders, even the other, credentialed media journalists, even if they say, okay, it's going to be Jake Garcia, what efficacy does that have? What impact would that actually have on Coach Cristobal's decision? Nothing, right? So if that's what people want to think and they have guys that they want to root for and, things like that, I'm fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. But when it comes to the end of the day, there's going to be a battle between those guys. And, the wheat is going to separate from the chaff, and we're going to figure out who's going to start and who's not, And both of them they're different players, but they're very talented, very athletically talented. Both of them have strong arms. Curry Brown has these shoulders that are, looks like a cartoon zoot suit or something. You know what I mean? Like, he's this big dude. And I'm Adam Lichtenstein from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, journalist buddy of mine. He put up one video of a Ja'Curry Brown throw on air, 14 yards in the air. But just watching the footwork and seeing how it's cleaner and seeing how that arm action was and everything, even on air, if he's able to make that the foundation of how he actually performs the job on the field and those mechanics get consistent, man, that could be a problem because he's athletic as hell, has a really strong arm, and he's a gamer too. Even though he completed 55% of his passes in high school, he wasn't incredibly accurate because sometimes the mechanics would come apart, and sometimes his accuracy and everything. But game on the line, go back and watch those. Go back and watch Lowndes from last year. He's running people over. He's running away from people. He's putting throws on the dot. Last play of the game, down by 8. We got to have a touchdown. Gets the touchdown, scores it to himself, goes into overtime. I don't remember if they won the state championship or not, but it was in the state championship game, right? So this kid is a gamer. So basically, if I got to figure it out, I can figure it out. Imagine if he had the ability, if he was more skilled with that, because talent is God-given and skill is developed, right? So he has all the talent in the world. Now imagine that his developed skill matches that intangible skill of playmaking or evasive action when it's needed, that clutch gene of making a big play in a big moment, and being 6'4" with these shoulders and this running ability and this incredibly strong arm. Imagine then all of that, he has increased knowledge and improved skill. There's a lot to like with him, but you get the highest rated recruit at quarterback since Kyle Wright, and that's Jake Garcia. So nobody's going to hand it to one or the other, but I just gave you a 2-minute soliloquy as to why, in terms of Ja'Curry Brown, there's things to like. I've already told, everybody knows about Jake Garcia. Jake Garcia was ahead of Tyler Van Dyke until he broke his ankle in the Central Connecticut game last year. That's a verifiable fact. Coach said it. He was like, with the twos, it was Jake, then it was Tyler. We all saw that, right? So this is a kid with a lot of talent as well. But yeah, we can all have our favorites. We have the one that we root for, the one we might prefer at the time, whether that's next year or the year after. But even if we have that preferred option, there's going to be a battle on the Green Tree practice fields, and somebody's going to come up on top.
Palomu steals Troy Polamalu. Yeah, I get it. Polamalu steals comment here. I'm going to turn into a question because I think this is interesting. So if you look at all the great programs in college football, most of them have distinguished themselves by the obvious, winning. You have to win. If you don't win, forget it. So if you're Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, on down the line, then there's a distinguishing quality of the Michigan helmet, the Michigan fight song, Script Ohio, Notre Dame not playing in a conference, and various other things. On and on, we could pick out the program. Miami, we would put, I would, in a different category because obviously none of their flash and swag would have meant anything without winning. But then they brought an attitude that was new to college football, cutting edge at the forefront of just the type of swag and that was taken on by then other programs and copied and so forth and so on. Okay.
Mhm.
That was in the 80s, the 90s. That was, most notably kind of in that period from 83 to about, for the next 10 years, most notably. Okay. Now we fast forward to 2022 and the next few years, let's say, and he's making a statement about USC swag. And again, I'll put USC in the category of Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, whatever, traditional power. But of course, Pete Carroll was different, and they just had so much talent that I think that's the era he's shooting for there with USC swag. Miami swag, okay, once, if we're being confident about it, or if Miami returns to that type of prominence, being a top 3 program in the country, is it going to be the same? Like when Palomalu makes the comment about college football can't handle Miami being back at the forefront, being on top. But is Miami in 2025 going to have that same impact of Miami 1990?
I mean, the thing is, the impact of Miami in 1990 is seen across the sport. Who plays, where teams go to recruit those players, the way that, who they hire off the field, as guys go through their coaching careers, trying to get guys to come down here and recruit and everything. So all of those things are already seen. So I think that it would be similar, but not the same, but it wouldn't be transformational in the same way because the prior iteration of the program transformed the landscape of college football. So I don't think that it would transform the landscape again. It would just kind of slot back into being up towards the top. So it would have an impact, of course, but I don't think it would be the same because the prior impact is still being felt. So you're not going to kind of overwrite that, as it were.
Thank you so much for everyone being here and confirming your actions of liking the video and subscribing and so forth and so on.
Thank you for that compliment, Gary. I appreciate it.
All right. I'm looking for our next question or comment. Has there been anything since we spoke last Wednesday that has stood out about spring practice?
Well, yeah, there was the first scrimmage on Saturday. So I figured it was coming around that time. Confirmed when they were like, yeah, practice is closed to everybody on Saturday. I was like, that smells like a scrimmage. You know what I mean? So there was that. Defense did well. Tyler Van Dyke just continues to do Tyler Van Dyke things. Jay Garcia looked really good. Ja'Cory Brown looked pretty good. As Daniel collects notes, yeah, there's tons of things that started with Miami in a tradition-wise, putting the 4 fingers up 4 quarter of the chain, smoke coming out of the tunnel. All things like that and more that have been copied across the landscape of college football, which, is still ongoing. So, yeah. Sorry, that was an aside. Back to the lecture at hand. So the scrimmage, got some opportunity to have guys showcase what they're doing. We're still missing 8-10 guys who are going to be factors this fall, so it wasn't the entire team. Xavier Restrepo really looks like he's stepping up. Frank Ladson looks like he's getting back into the battle with Jacoby George at the X receiver, and that's a sight for sore eyes because while I think that Jacoby George can be good, he'll even be Keyshawn Smith at the X. And while I think that all of them can be very good, having Ladson return to form, his All-American high school form, and the flashes that he showed at Clemson, but getting towards that consistently is that would be a big added benefit for the program. So, but yeah, it was a good day, a clean day. There was, I think Jared Harrison Hunt might have gotten dinged up a little bit because he wasn't at practice yesterday. And then you're just kind of going through spring. You got guys who are out for a while and then they're back. Elijah Arroyo had a red no contact jersey. Tuesday he comes out in the regular jersey. and things like that. But it was really just the scrimmage. So we're really starting to get a hold on the install of what we're trying to do to try to build an identity for this team overall in terms of being a crystal ball-led organization and for this season with hopefully minimal injuries. And that's the biggest thing to me. You're always going to have player development. Guys are just going to be a year older and wiser and smarter, and another trip through the fourth quarter program or in the weight room. And I know that it's a different program this year and everything, but whatever the off-season program is, the fourth quarter program, the map drill program, whatever, whoever the S&C is, I know another just months of weightlifting and things like that. So you're going to have those kind of developments. The thing that you want to avoid, in my eye, and the most important thing, are injuries. It's just, it just changes the face of everything. In 2000, what was that? 13? Whenever Brad Kaya first started, that was because Ryan Williams tore his knee up in the spring. And he wasn't able to come back. So that changed that season. Now, I'm not going to say that it took us from being a championship contender to something else, but, you did not have the idea of starting a true freshman when you signed him, because Brad Kaya was a top 150 guy in America, or top 200, but he wasn't top 5. You know what I mean? Then you bring in Jake Heaps and everything to try to cover that gap of, okay, this guy who is a fifth-year senior and who we thought was going to start. He had won a state championship at Miramar, and he played at Memphis for a year or two and everything. And no, Ryan Williams isn't going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. And he didn't have that, he wasn't going to be on that path. But as a fifth-year senior, you figure, okay, he's probably the safer bet while everything kind of moves forward. We had to change the paradigm and the path because of an injury. And that's the most important thing to me to avoid. So it seems like we've gotten through this point. Hopefully, sorry, I'll knock on the wooden piano behind me. But yeah, hopefully we'll continue that. But that's the most important thing, more than any of the updates, because the updates are going to be, we were working on this, we did this well, blah, 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 blah. Everybody says the same thing. Just don't get anybody hurt. Continue to install and move forward.
Running through the comments that have hit the channel over the last week. Don't see anything significant yet, but we got one on the screen from Jake. He's concerned with the linebackers and right tackle on offense. Is there any reason for optimism?
First of all, I think that we started to see Jalen Rivers work his way back on the offensive line. That's going to be one of your starters probably at right guard. And then you have other guys who could potentially slot in at that right tackle position. It is a question mark at this point in time, but especially if you have a better group, hopefully that supports the individual, and bringing back Rivers off of injury, that should hopefully help. And then if you're going to have, instead of 2 guys keeping a seat warm, right? Maybe you just take the better of those guys between right tackle and right guard. You start them at right tackle, and then by having another starter, again, that the individual supports the group. So there's that. In terms of linebacker, I think there's guys on the roster. It's just, as has been the case, I believe, for several seasons, we just need to play the right guys. That's just kind of it. I just really think that we've gotten into this habit of playing guys who don't need to be playing that much. And I think that the names maybe have changed, right? I think, at a time it was Sam Brooks. I think they need to play more Avery Huff. Avery Huff is all kinds of athletic, but if you can't figure it out, okay. Chase Smith, he's in the Curry Brown Zoot Suit Shoulder Club. He's a guy, you put on 15 pounds, you put him in the box. Wayne Steed is undersized like a Sean Spence, but he's a guy who can make plays, right? So, I think the athletes are there to improve the performance. And you have a way better linebackers coach in Charlie Strong, to be perfectly honest, than Manny Diaz. All due respect to Manny Diaz, who is coaching linebackers and defensive coordinator again at Penn State. If I had to pick who I want to coach my linebackers, I'm picking Charlie Strong any day of the week, twice on Saturday. Sorry. So you have a better coach, and I think you have guys, you have the kind of athletes that you need. and hopefully they're going through the development program, and that's developing them well. But I think it really just comes down to playing the correct players, and I think that will help the situation. Now, if they play them, that remains to be seen. But yeah, there are things that could, you could be happy about at linebacker, but we'll see if they come to fruition.
We talk Miami football with all of you every Wednesday night, 7 Eastern time. So we appreciate you being here. Come on back next week. And guess what? Why don't you bring a friend or two, whether that be word of mouth or get on social media, let people know that we are here talking Canes with all of you. Cam, I see a number of comments in the chat. They're not specific, but what is the injury status of Romello Brinson?
None that I'm aware of.
Or anything? No?
I have not.
Maybe I'm missing something here. Because
I mean, maybe I am too. I actually got up and I did a bunch of errands today and everything. So I was not necessarily just sitting on the timeline or talking to people or anything, but I have not seen or heard anything about him being injured currently.
Maybe nothing. It wasn't like 25 comments. It was like 3, and they were all very vague.
I get it. I mean, hey, like that's what we're here for. But as you ask me now, I don't have a response for that. No, I haven't heard anything. Heard, read, or seen reported to be fully accurate, so that I'm not offending any journalist or blogger or anybody out there.
Earlier today, folks, you can head on over to the main channel. I released ACC coaches rankings. Where do you think Mario should fit in that? Where would you place Mario in ACC coaches rankings?
Sorry, just cracking my neck. Ooh, it feels good. Okay. No lower than 2. I mean, there's nobody in the Atlanta or nobody in the Coastal that I'm picking over Mario. The only reason I would pick Dabo over Mario right now would be past performance. But I'm not picking anybody in the Atlantic. So I mean, I would say no lower than 2. And no lower than 2.
Okay. Lane Boy, thank you for the super chat. Cam and Mark, 2 legends in the building. The U, hashtag the U. Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, that's a USC comment.
I mean, look, that if SC has that number of 5 stars coming in, which is 8 to 10, as Palomalo Steele says on there, that would really just be Lincoln Riley re-engaging the foothold that SC once had on the West Coast. Like I've talked about it on here, and I'll just kind of give you the Cliff's notes. Nobody from modern day, especially the quarterback, used to go anywhere but SC. And they were a 4-star, 5-star recruit. They ended up starting at SC, potentially winning a Heisman, challenging for a national championship, and going to the league for years. Junipero Serra, sorry, no, not Junipero Serra, Sarah. They used to nickname it US Sarah because every 4-star and 5-star from there went to SC. You got a Dory Jackson, you had Olajuwon Tucker, you had so many dudes, and there's way more. I just don't have that list on the top of my brain right now. But if you went to Sarah and you were a 4-star, 5-star, you went to SC. If you were the quarterback of modern day and you're an All-American 5-star, then you went to SC. Matt Barkley, Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez, and other guys. It was just that was what it was. If you were a top guy in Southern California or even in that region, it was SC at the top of your list every single year, and then whatever. Lincoln Riley is a pretty good coach, understatement. But yeah, so he could reenact that or re-engage that kind of a thing, and that would also be mirroring things on this coast, what you would want from a Mario Cristobal. And it wouldn't necessarily be the exact same pipeline kind of a thing, because I don't think that there's a school that, everybody comes down here to recruit. I don't know, everybody goes to LA, but it's different because it's just different down here. than it is out there in terms of the high school football and recruiting landscape. For many, many reasons that we can, I mean, from coaches' pay to, street handlers to, the hood being such poverty here, as even opposed to the hood in LA, that, getting out is a different kind of a thing. And, you get so all those kind of things, but you would want similar kind of performance from a Mario Cristobal over here, both this year and moving forward. But yeah. Who turns it around first? I mean, honestly, both teams, USC and Miami, are primed to get back soon. I don't know. I think it's going to take a couple breaks. I think both are really well suited to getting back towards being in the upper echelon of the world of college football. But yeah.
Miami's a better football team right now, so they have less ground to cover to get there. But it's not like they've been a better team every year for the last 5 years. So that's a very immediate analysis of the two rosters and the two teams based on the play on the field last year. Miami was markedly a better team than USC, but I think USC's they're not a 4-8 roster.
No.
Even last year, they weren't a 4-8 roster. They lost their coach and they were just scuffling, and it was just a bad situation, bad vibe, not a lot of buy-in. And so even without Lincoln Riley, they weren't going to turn around and go 4 wins. But now they've got him in place, and of course, just picked up one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So both teams are well set there, of course. And they're two of the more intriguing situations on the landscape, for sure.
So let me ask you this that was brought up to me yesterday. Shout out to my boy Fred Purdue, former podcast co-host of mine. We still talk Canes and everything. And so as you watched last year, Mark, what would you, without having seen the numbers, and I went through the box scores to verify this because this is what was brought to me, would you think that Miami was more of a quick strike offense, as in scoring in 5 plays or fewer, or were they more methodical, as in more drives of higher numbers of plays, like 8 or more?
I would say, based on just kind of cycling through what I remember of scoring plays for Miami, that they were the drives were more elongated, numbers of plays.
And okay. And then is that a good thing for Miami? Is it a bad thing for Miami? How do you think? Yeah, is that good or bad, or what's your read on that thought of Miami being a team that has more methodical drives than home runs?
Well, the best offenses have the ability to do both.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's going to be a measure of both, of course.
Yeah, there's going to be, even the worst offense in college football did something in both categories at some point. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult to drive 15 plays, 80 yards. That's just difficult to do. It's impressive. It's beneficial to your defense, the time on the clock, based depending on game situation. Mm-hmm. There's so many, you're enforcing your will along the line of scrimmage. It's just impressive for a lot of reasons, but it's difficult to do. You certainly want the capability to be able to put points up quickly in case you're behind, number one. And number two, just again, it's you hit for 75 yards on one play, then you erased all those things that you would have to repeatedly do well, not miss blocks, not commit a penalty, not drop a pass, and be able to do that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you've commented that some of the offenses of the last 6 or 7 years were a little too heavy on the, that there was ability there to get the quick strike, the big play, but there was little consistency in mounting drives, and there weren't enough big plays to put up 35 or 42 points. It was in the low to mid 20s, and there just wasn't enough of it. And that's all there was.
Right. That, and I also wanted just to run at a faster tempo, quicker to the line sometimes as well. But yeah, so it's funny because Fred had the opposite thought, that Miami was all big plays and no drives, basically.
Well, he would know better than me.
Here. So I just looked at the 8 games that Tyler Van Dyke started last year. And in those games, there were 26 scoring drives of 7 plays or fewer. So that would be your fast, quick drives. And in there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jesus, we scored quickly at Pittsburgh. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of those 26 drives were 5 plays or fewer. So yeah, there were definitely some home runs, especially as the season wore on with him. But there were 23 drives of 8 plays or more, including half of that being 10 plays or more. So, but yeah, Fred was very they were all home run. And when you think about the big games, right? Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Duke, right? That was the lion's share of the quick scores of that list, because that's really when Tyler Van Dyke got it going. He's, heating up and everything. But along that same path, we scored 1 million points at Duke. So there were, 6 drives of 8 plays or more in that game alone, so long drives and everything. But it was just interesting as a point of conversation just to see, okay, what do we think? What do we think that the DNA of this offense was? What do we think that the DNA of this offense is going to be? What do we think that, we're going to try to do? Are we going to go, pace and space and try to hit them for 75 every time? Obviously you want to score as much, but you can scheme that more than, some other things. So it was just kind of an interesting conversation to see how that, if you work, you have the ends in mind first and say, okay, this is the methodology to score. Now build me the team that would use that methodology consistently. So I thought it was an interesting point of conversation. Maybe the audience does or doesn't, but
it is, and it sounds like it was balanced, 26 and 23.
Yeah.
So they were able to do both.
Yeah, but I will say that it was inverted as to when, because early in the season it was more long drives than short, but especially as the year went on, those last 4 games, it was way more short drives than long, even with the Duke game included in there that had 6 of them in and of itself. But it was basically just because Duke couldn't stop, you and me from scoring. So, there was just 1 million of both in that game. But yeah.
See, I would say there's nothing negative about being able to score in 2 or 3 plays. What are you supposed to do? Tell your wide receivers, lay down at the 10-yard line and don't score. That's showing explosiveness and ability for either the offensive line just to open up a lane that's big enough to drive a Mack truck through, or that you got a receiver that's just crazy, can just take the top off a defense, or do it after the catch, make 3 guys miss in the open. You've got all those components, a quarterback with a big arm that can do it. So there's no negative to that, except for if it's inconsistent.
And that's what I was going to say.
Inconsistent. So that's their MO, but it's not consistent enough. There's 21 points a game and they're all on big plays, but they don't do it consistent enough.
Explosiveness is very important, but yeah, Mark said it exactly right. You do have to have consistency as well. So, sometimes I need 4 yards on 2nd and 3 just to, flip the chains and whatnot. That would be a, consistency kind of a thing, but I agree completely.
Yeah, we've all seen teams that have quarterbacks that go 21 of 40 for 320 and a couple touchdowns and a couple picks. And it's like, Yeah, the highlight reel looked good, but if you watched the entire game, they only scored 24 points, and
Right.
he looked great at times, but not at other times. Kyloren, we appreciate you being here. Cam, who was a better recruiter? Jimbo Fisher, Mario Cristobal.
Those are two of the top recruiters
Yeah.
in America. So I don't think that you can go wrong either way. I had my back scratcher that I just bought. Back scratcher. So old Family Guy reference. Sorry about that. Anyways, and it was a different word, but anyway. Right now, I would have to give the edge to Jimbo just because they got another 5-star defensive lineman last week who reclassified up from the 23 class to the 22 class. Lebius Overton is his name, from Georgia, I believe it is. 5-star defensive end. And I think that took it up to 9, and 6 or 7 of them are defensive linemen in this current class that's coming in either on campus or going into the fall. So, I mean, you can talk NIL collectives. You can talk about how they're paying the kids. And I mean, like, they can do it legally now. So, like, you can put it out there. I mean, there's still the bagman game going on. Like, do not get it twisted. The bagman game is going to continue with NIL. Just know that. But having signed, I believe, the highest rated class in the history of recruiting rankings, with arguably the most 5-stars in a single class since recruiting rankings have come around, I'm going to have to give the title to Jimbo right now, honestly. Now, it could change, and, Mario is an incredible recruiter. Like, that's why when he came back to Miami, Nick Saban was like, cool, so here's this 7-figure contract for you to coach offensive line and be our recruiting coordinator and, like, really level that up. There was a reason for that. So, yeah, I think that they're in the conversation, but, I mean, if I had to give the title to one or the other right now, it would have to, I mean, come on, it would have to go to Jimbo.
We've got another recruiting question coming in from Brian. Of course, Florida's first and foremost, and of course, the state of Miami is paramount. But going elsewhere, what do you consider to be important area to attack?
It's funny, I wrote about this a while ago, but I think you're really going to have the foundation of the roster be in the state of Miami, which is from Orlando south, basically. So draw a line across the state at I-4, Walt Disney World and everything. From there all the way south, that's going to be 60, 70% of your roster. On top of that, you go where the players are, man. If that happens to be in the Atlanta area, Jamila Dye coached up there, cool. If that happens to be in the Washington, D.C. area, you got ties there now, boom. If that happens to be the Texas, then, you go and, hit out there to Houston or Dallas. If it's L.A., Mario is, recruited nationally. Charlie Strong is recruited nationally. Steve Field is recruited nationally. So yeah, it's really just, I would say 60 to 70% from the state of Miami being I-4 South. From I-4 South, because I know I-4 goes east and west across the state, guys. I know. But from I-4 South, 60 to 70% of your roster, and then you go where the players are to find anybody else. For example, there is not a dynamic quarterback in this class down here. So you go find one. Dante Moore from Detroit has been on campus a couple times. Jalen Rashada, who I think should be and will be the quarterback in this class from Pittsburgh, California, has been on campus a couple times. So yeah, you go where the player is for that. That's where I really think it is. So it's not, but California, Georgia, Texas, I literally mentioned all of those places. So but it's, you basically want Miami to have the footprint of, Oregon has recruited nationally recently. USC, Notre Dame is a national team because they don't have a local area. They are a national institution. So they go where the players are, which is wherever. Michigan, because of the longevity of that program and everything. Yeah, the 50%, 60% of your roster is going to be from Michigan, but Michigan goes wherever to recruit, and they do it really well. They got Anthony Solomon from St. Thomas Aquinas away from Miami. They got the McCaffrey brother from Valor Christian in Colorado. They got, they go wherever, in addition to being very good at home. And I think that, Brian, in answer to your question, that's what you want Miami to do, really do well at home, and then go where the players are and get them from wherever else.
It's difficult to envision that Miami's going to have a successful roster composition that's going to be like 80% from Florida, then like 17% from one of those other areas. Like there's
Right.
going to need to be a focus on Georgia or California. Yeah, you go to where the players are. I'm looking at the roster right now. So we take out all the Florida kids. We go from top to bottom numerically, and you've got California, Connecticut. We know who that is. Georgia, Texas, California, Arizona, Texas, New Jersey, Alabama, Mississippi. We know who that is, I think. South Carolina, Georgia. Generally, the same states are popping up. So Texas, Illinois.
What's for Illinois?
Illinois would be Miles Muyung.
Oh, he's a walk-on.
Number 38 defensive back. I was just going down the roster.
No, I get you.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but yeah, really do well here. And then go select players from around the country to round things out, as is what happened with defensive end. No, we did not get Shamar Stewart, whatever. Bullshit, by the way. But you get Nigel Kelly, and then you go out to Bishop Gorman, get your fourth player from there, and get Cyrus Moss. Not local, at all. Like Las Vegas is way the hell out west. I mean, that's a local trip for SC, but he didn't pick XC. He picked Miami. You know what I mean? So that would be Miami going where the player is to get that player, And as you continue to recruit nationally, then these things are available. Because if we had not gotten Brevin Jordan and then taken Tate Martell and Bubba Bolden as transfers, there's probably no way that we get Cyrus Moss. And Darnell Washington went to Desert Pines in Las Vegas, and he picked Georgia because they gave him a bag instead of picking Miami, which is where we actually used him at 6'8" as a tight end. I mean, he probably should be an offensive tackle anyway, but whatever. But it's not crazy for Miami to go back to Las Vegas after having gotten three guys from there recently, having been a finalist for another All-American guy from there who ended up coming on this side of the country. Now you go back there and say, hey, we're good. You know what I mean? We're not fly-by-night. We're not just coming out here for you and don't have any ties or have any relationships out here. We've been here to this school. We've been out here to this city. My name is good in this hood, right? So now it makes sense. So now in 2026, there's another All-American player from Las Vegas. Miami can absolutely be a player for that team or a player for that recruit because of what's been done. Now you go back to Dallas, you go back to Houston, you got Corey Flagg from there, you got De'Aaron King, who's a legend in that city as a high school player and played there at UH for 3 years. So I go out there now and I recruit. I mean, I'm not saying that we're right to the top of the list, but those schools, Duncanville, where we were recruiting Cameron Williams and another player this past cycle, we go back to Duncanville this year or next year, we've been there. We've been on this block. We've been walking in these halls. I've talked to Ms. Jones, that counselor at your school, who's still there. You know what I mean? So going where the players are is going to be a beneficial thing for Miami on top of trying to obviously to lock down as much talent from down here as possible. And hopefully sometime, maybe in this class, we can undo the ghost of Al Golden and get a 5-star wide receiver from South Florida. Because he did not recruit Amari Cooper. And that has come back to bite us in the ass. Shout out to JP. This is literally, he said it. And it's God's honest truth. That has bitten us in the ass for 12 years. And I remember I saw Amari Carter. This is back when they had 7-on-7 nationals on ESPN at the Wide World of Sports in Orlando. And everybody was talking about Teddy Bridgewater, and everybody was talking about, whomever else. And I was like, who's this? I think he was wearing number 80 or 83 as a sophomore. I was like, who's that? Because that's the kid I want. Like, oh, well, I was like, I don't care if he's underclassman. Highlight him. I want to know more about this dude. We got his commitment, and then it was, it's just, but there has to be a time that a recruit changes that trend. Hopefully the staff can. And I know that I sound like myself because I sound like I was sounding when Miami was in that long losing streak to Florida State. And during that losing streak, if you watching these videos, listen to anything that I did, read anything I wrote, I invariably said there has to be a person to make a program-changing play in a positive way. Because we found guys to throw interceptions, we found guys to fumble, we found guys to miss tackles, but somebody has to step up and make a program-changing positive play to turn that tide, get Miami a win over Florida State and move forward. And in the same way, there's going to be a kid who comes to Miami, and it won't change everything. I'm not saying we're going to get everybody, but right now we're getting nobody of the 5 stars. And it has to change. And I know you're probably thinking, but Cam, we got Amon Richards. Amon Richards, great player. He was a 4-star. He was not a 5-star. He was not, and he was from Wellington, right? He wasn't from, that is the Miami area, 561, shout out to Kev. But not from, Northwestern, Central, St. Thomas Aquinas, not one of those programs down here that has put up, even Frank Ladson at South Dade. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's on the roster now, but no, it's going to have to change. And hopefully in this class, and that focus on being, obviously always the state of Miami first and everything, but that's going to have to change. And that was the short story long on that answer. But yeah, focus here, go where the players are, and give them something to play for. And hopefully that's this U, because that U, it can be different with the right kind of guys.
So according to 247, this can't be correct. They only have 4 5-stars listed in the 2023 class. Wait a minute. These are quarterbacks. I wanted like all players. Okay. Oh, there we go.
28 to 32? I believe 32 is the number.
Yeah. So currently, out of the 5 stars for 2023, they have committed to USC, Tennessee, Notre Dame, USC, Penn State, and that's the list.
So yeah, that's 3 or 4 already committed to SC. So Malachi Nelson, being the Pied Piper and leading them and everything. But yeah, we got to do what we got to do. But I would say it's more going where the players are than any one area. But as long as we continue to recruit the way that we should be recruiting and going to the programs and places that we should be going to, when inevitably a player pops up in that area, then Miami is already there and aware of them. Because again, these are guys that you're going to know of from their freshman or sophomore years if they're like that, It's not like, I'm running another college hoops dynasty or legacy, on my PS3. And it's funny because they populate a new group of seniors every year. Like there's a small amount of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And then when it comes to current year recruiting, there's a whole list that's generated and populated. That's not how real life happens. Those kids are living, breathing people who are playing high school football. So as long as we're going to the places and doing the recruiting like we should be, and everything, inviting those 7-on-7 teams down, when there's the regional or national, we don't have national down here, but when there's like the Pylon Miami 7-on-7, get them all on campus, do that, figure that out, and everything. So as long as we're doing what we need to do, then we can go where the players are.
All right. We've got some serious trolling going on right now. It's not abusive in any way. It's just ridiculous. So,
oh boy,
the likes of Memphis, Houston, and UCF being better than Miami. Okay.
All right. Cool.
All right, folks. Appreciate y'all being here. Mostly Canes fans, but everybody is welcome here at the Voice of College Football Miami. And of course, Cam makes it all happen. So I hope we got a little appreciation through some super chats, but would like to have some more. As you can understand, Cam gives a lot of time here each and every week and has been doing it for a long, long time. Get on over to the State of the U, and I will let Cam let you know what you can find there.
I mean, just a lot of great stuff. We got a lot of great guys, creating content. So see some things in editorial right now. I'm even in the editorial working on a piece for recruiting and a couple other things. I'm not going to write up that touchdown chart piece, but I do have another piece of football commentary that I think could be interesting. So look for that probably next week or the week after, because I need to get my thoughts together on that. But yeah, we're always there. John Reynolds handling baseball, had a bunch of guys, including Craig T. Smith, with the basketball team and their run to the Elite Eight and all kinds of things like that. So we do try to be active all the time. So 24/7, 365 at stateoftheu.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the State of the U. Where Justin DeTavio has been doing a lot of good stuff with his all 22 film reviews. We'll be popping in on his study hall time and tweeting out some stuff. And I'm in there as well, of course, obviously. And then my personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. So come on over and fan with us. Leave some comments, create some chatter, and we will continue to just be there for you guys. And we'll see you next week.
ACC coaches rankings. I release the Big Ten and the SEC in the next 2 days. See if Mario's ranked number 2, where he should be according to Cam. Cam, thanks, man.
No problem, Mark.
Appreciate it.